They pulled her aside at the checkpoint like she was nothing. A quiet woman with a weathered duffel bag, just another contractor to push around. The lieutenant made a show of it, dumping her belongings across the floor for everyone to see. Some smirked, others watched in uncomfortable silence. Then something metallic rolled out, gleaming under the harsh lights. A chrome Magnum 44, custom engraved, unmistakable. The room went dead silent. The veteran sergeant recognized it immediately. That weapon belonged to a phantom, a legend they all thought was buried. She picked it up calmly, and every uniform in the room froze in recognition. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story resonates with you, consider subscribing for more tales of unrecognized heroes. The dawn light filtered through the mountain peaks as Victoria Sterling joined the queue at Fort Blackstone's security checkpoint. She shifted the weight of her faded olive duffel bag, her movements deliberate despite her unremarkable civilian clothes. The sterile white lighting made everyone look pale, highlighting the thin scar that ran from her left ear to her collarbone. A mark most would assume came from some mundane accident. Fort Blackstone earned its reputation as an impenetrable fortress carved into the rock face, surrounded by razor wire and concrete walls. Unlike the public military installations with their guided tours and gift shops, this facility appeared on no civilian maps. Those aware of its existence spoke carefully, if at all. The checkpoint hummed with typical morning activity, defense contractors clutching travel mugs, clerical staff scrolling through emails, young officers hurrying to avoid being late for briefings. Victoria observed everything with practiced indifference, her eyes occasionally noting camera angles and guard rotations. Lieutenant Marcus Kellerman strutted behind the inspection table, his dress blues immaculate, his bearing radiating ambition and self-satisfaction. "Keep moving," he snapped at a fumbling technician. "This isn't a social club." Victoria watched how the other guards tensed when Kellerman approached, not from respect, but from worriness. Ambitious junior officers eager to advance were often the most volatile, searching for any excuse to demonstrate their authority. When Victoria reached the front, she set her simple documentation on the counter. The plastic ID showed her photograph but minimal information, just a contractor status and basic clearance. "Business here?" the desk guard asked without eye contact. "Meeting with General Blackwood," she answered, her tone neutral and measured. That caught Kellerman's attention. He stepped closer, examining her worn cargo pants and plain jacket with obvious disdain. "The general doesn't schedule meetings with civilians," he declared, snatching her credentials, "especially without advance authorization." Behind him, Sergeant Reynolds, a grizzled man with graying temples, looked up from his workstation. His eyes narrowed as they met Victoria's. Something shifted in his expression, uncertainty, maybe recognition. "Verify that," Victoria said simply. Kellerman's face hardened. "Step over for enhanced screening," he ordered, signaling two junior guards. Routine security protocol. The waiting area quieted as Victoria was guided to an open space in the center. Military personnel and civilians watched with mild curiosity at the morning's drama. Arms extended, Kellerman commanded, circling her like a hunter. Victoria complied wordlessly, her gaze fixed straight ahead as the lieutenant performed his display of power. "The bag as well," he added, pointing to her duffel. She paused almost imperceptibly. "I'd rather you didn't." Murmurs rippled through the observers. Nobody challenged Lieutenant Kellerman. "This is a classified military installation, not a community center," he replied with theatrical contempt. "You don't get preferences." At Kellerman's nod, two officers seized her duffel. Corporal Lisa Chen, the younger guard, caught Victoria's eye briefly, a flash of apology in her features. "Nothing to worry about, right?" Kellerman said, grabbing the bag himself and dramatically overturning it onto the polished floor. Personal items spilled out, a notebook, spare clothing, basic medical supplies. He kicked through them dismissively. "All this drama over your laundry." Victoria remained motionless, only a slight tightening around her eyes revealing any reaction. Among the scattered belongings, a small medal caught the fluorescent light, spinning to rest near Sergeant Reynolds' station. His eyes widened as he recognized the insignia, but he stayed silent. Across the room, Reynolds had half risen from his chair, staring at Victoria's wrist where a small tattoo was barely visible beneath her sleeve. The mark was unmistakable, a stylized black stone that matched the medal now on the floor. "Seer," Corporal Chen said quietly, noticing a photograph among the items. It showed a younger Victoria in partial uniform beside a woman who bore a strong resemblance to General Blackwood. Kellerman ignored her, focusing on Victoria's leather notebook. He lifted it, flipping through pages with deliberate slowness. "Let's see what secrets a contractor has that require the general's attention," he announced, playing to his audience. Several onlookers shifted uncomfortably. Even for a security check, This was becoming excessive. When Kellerman raised the notebook, threatening to read aloud, Victoria spoke again. "Lieutenant," she said calmly, "that bag contains one item you should know about." Kellerman laughed, performing for the crowd. "A weapon declaration now." He tossed the empty bag across the floor. Search complete. Nothing dangerous except wasted time. The bag slid, spinning as it struck a chair. Then it happened. The chrome Magnum 44 slipped from the bag's concealed pocket, rolling across the polished concrete like a metallic coin. Light reflected off its custom engraving, a black stone inlaid against the chrome. The room fell completely silent. The weapon stopped, barrel pointing toward Sergeant Reynolds like an accusation. His face went white. "Jesus," someone breathed. Corporal Chen's eyes went wide. "Eyes that the Sahara gun," Reynolds confirmed with a barely audible whisper. Every intelligence operative knew the legend, though few believed it was anything more than folklore. 3 years ago, a covert mission in the Sahara Desert had gone disastrously wrong. Terrorists had captured a research facility, holding 24 scientists hostage. Official records denied any involvement, but stories circulated of a lone operative who had penetrated the compound and neutralized 16 hostage takers while critically wounded. The operative's signature weapon, a custom chrome Magnum 44, had become legendary in intelligence communities. Victoria approached calmly, the crowd separating as if she carried an electric field. She knelt, retrieving the weapon with practiced efficiency, checking the safety before sliding it into a hidden shoulder holster. When she stood, the entire room had transformed. Sergeant Reynolds snapped to perfect attention, his arm rigid in salute. "Major Sterling," he said, his voice cracking. "We believed you were KIA, ma'am." Recognition spread through the senior personnel like wildfire. A master chief near the coffee station stood at attention. 2 colonels by the communications desk, a signals officer who dropped her tablet. Kellerman's confusion was obvious. "What's happening?" he demanded, his authority evaporating. "Lieutenant," came a commanding voice from the entrance. "You have just harassed the only recipient of the Blackstone Medal currently in service." General Sarah Blackwood stood in the doorway, her silver hair swept back severely, her uniform displaying the quiet dignity of earned honors rather than ceremonial decoration. Her sharp eyes surveyed the scene with cold assessment. The room stiffened further as Blackwood crossed to where Victoria stood. Shocking everyone, the general knelt to collect the scattered belongings. "The last time I saw this weapon," Blackwood announced to the room, "Major Sterling was using it to save 24 hostages in the Sahara while bleeding from 3 gunshot wounds." She handed the notebook back to Victoria with visible respect. "Your mission report was overdue 3 years ago, Major." Victoria's mouth curved into the faintest smile. "I encountered some delays, General." Lieutenant Kellerman had gone ashen, realization crashing over him like a wave, his career prospects flashing before his eyes. Every uniform remained frozen in salute, a forest of respect for a woman who had entered as nobody and stood revealed as legend. General Blackwood broke protocol, embracing Victoria briefly. "Welcome back, Vicky," she said quietly. "We grieved for you." The gesture sent shockwaves through the assembled personnel. Blackwood was renowned for iron discipline and strict protocol. Nobody had witnessed her embrace a subordinate. Corporal Chen stepped forward, carefully gathering the remaining items. "Mom," she said, offering Victoria's folded clothes. "It's an honor." Victoria nodded acknowledgement, addressing the room. At ease. Personnel relaxed slightly, though many remained formally rigid in a living legend's presence. Stories of the Sahara operation had circulated for years, growing more extraordinary with each retelling. Some claimed the operative had been a ghost. Others insisted a full tactical team had infiltrated under darkness. Few believed the truth, that a single woman had orchestrated the entire rescue. Sergeant Reynolds approached, emotion clear on his weathered face. "Major, it's an honor. Your mission in the Sahara saved my daughter. She was one of the research staff." "How is she now?" Victoria asked, her voice softening for the first time since entering. "Married, 2 children, named her son after your call sign, Little Ghost Reynolds." He smiled weakly. "One never knew your real identity until today." Genuine warmth crossed Victoria's features. "Tell Ghost the Phantom sends her regards." Blackwood placed a hand on Victoria's shoulder. "You've returned at a critical moment. The threat you warned us about 3 years ago has materialized. That's why I'm here," Victoria confirmed, her expression hardening. "But I need a team I can trust completely." Lieutenant Kellerman stood awkwardly aside, his earlier confidence completely shattered. When Victoria glanced his way, he visibly flinched. Addressing the stunned room, Blackwood's voice carried steel. "This woman has sacrificed more for her country than anyone in this facility. Her very existence is classified." Her gaze fell on Kellerman. "Lieutenant, report to my office at 0800 tomorrow for reassignment." Kellerman's face went gray. Reassignment from Fort Blackstone typically meant career termination, exile to some remote monitoring post far from advancement opportunities. Victoria surprised everyone by intervening. "General, the lieutenant was following protocol. Security should be rigorous." She turned to Kellerman, her expression unreadable. "But remember, respect costs nothing." Kellerman, his career hanging by threads, could only nod. As Corporal Chen handed Victoria her repacked duffel, now treated with reverence by those who had mocked it moments before, the major nodded appreciation. "Corporal, I could use someone with your attention to detail. Report to General Blackwood's office after your shift," Victoria said quietly. Chen's eyes widened. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am." The crowd dispersed, returning to duties with renewed energy, eager to share what they had witnessed with absent colleagues. By evening, the legend of the chrome Magnum and its owner would have spread throughout the base. Blackwood gestured toward the secure elevators. "We have much to discuss, Major. The intelligence you transmitted from deep cover has been crucial, but there are significant gaps." As they walked, personnel saluted or nodded respectfully. The transformation from her reception minutes earlier was remarkable. Victoria moved differently now, posture more commanding, eyes alert and evaluating, no longer playing the unremarkable contractor. 3 years is extensive time, General," Victoria said. "I was beginning to think my warnings had been dismissed." "Never dismissed," Blackwood replied firmly. "But there were those who found them inconvenient. Political currents shift, security priorities change. Some things remain constant," Victoria said, her hand brushing the holstered Magnum. They entered Blackwood's private elevator, doors sliding shut. Only in privacy did Blackwood allow her stern facade to soften slightly. "We genuinely believed you were dead, Vicky. After Morocco, when your beacon went dark," the general said, voice heavy with old pain. "The recovery team found your blood, but no body." "That was intentional," Victoria replied. "I needed everyone to believe I was gone, especially within our own organization." Intelligence suggested a high-level security breach. The elevator descended deep into the mountain, far below Fort Blackstone's public levels, where the most sensitive operations were planned and monitored. "Did you identify the source?" Blackwood asked. "That's why I'm here," Victoria repeated, more grimly. The doors opened to reveal a dimly lit operations center filled with screens displaying satellite feeds and data streams from worldwide. Senior officers worked quietly at various stations, conversations hushed and focused. They all looked up as Blackwood and Victoria entered, conversation stopping mid-sentence. Recognition and shock rippled across their faces like a wave. Colonel James Martinez, Special Operations Commander, actually dropped his coffee. "Ghost," he whispered using her old field designation. "It's really you." "Disappointed, James?" Victoria replied. "Never. Just surprised, pleasantly surprised." Blackwood led Victoria to a private briefing room off the main center. Once sealed inside, she activated multiple security protocols, shutting down electronic surveillance. "Old school," she explained, retrieving pen and paper. "Some conversations shouldn't leave digital traces." Victoria nodded approvingly. "The organization I've been tracking calls themselves Obsidian Fracture. Appropriately ironic given this facility's name. A splinter group?" Blackwood asked sharply. "More complex," Victoria replied. "They're comprised of former intelligence officers, military personnel, and government officials from multiple nations. Their unified ideology is that traditional governments are obsolete and vulnerable. They're proposing a new global order governed by what they term the qualified elite. Sounds like typical megalomaniacs," Blackwood observed, though her expression remained grave. "Their resources suggest otherwise," Victoria said. "They've infiltrated multiple agencies, military commands, and governmental bodies. They're in final preparation for an operation called Fractured Mirror. Timeline 48 hours based on communications I intercepted before my cover was blown." Blackwood sank into her chair. "That's why you surfaced now. You could have transmitted through usual channels. Usual channels may be compromised," Victoria explained. "And what I discovered requires direct action, not reports and committees." She reached into her duffel and produced a small encrypted drive, placing it between them. "Everything I gathered over 3 years. Names, operations, plans, including senior members within our own government." Blackwood stared at the drive as if it might explode. "How far up does it reach?" "Cabinet level," Victoria said flatly. "Possibly higher." The general's expression hardened. "That explains the resistance I encountered pushing to continue searching for you. The convenient budget cuts to the Sahara investigation. They needed me eliminated because I got too close in Morocco," Victoria confirmed. What they didn't anticipate was their assassination attempt providing perfect cover to go deeper underground. "And now?" Blackwood asked. No, they believe one of their assets is arriving at Fort Blackstone today, using credentials they provided. A woman authorized to access the AT-LAS defense system. Blackwood's eyes widened. LAS. That's their target. Control of America's autonomous orbital defense platform would give them leverage over every major power. Victoria explained. The perfect tool for their qualified elite to impose their new world order. And you intend to be this woman? I already am, Victoria said, producing another ID from her pocket. Datcher Rebecca Walsh, systems analyst, authorized by the defense secretary himself to perform security evaluation on ADLS. The credentials looked flawless, complete with specialized holographic security features supposedly impossible to replicate. The secretary is compromised, Blackwood realized, or being manipulated, Victoria said. Either way, this authorization is legitimate, processed through proper channels. So we spring their trap, Blackwood understood, use their operation against them. Exactly, Victoria confirmed, but I need a team with absolute reliability. People with no possible connection to Obsidian Fracture. That young corporal shows promise, Blackwood suggested. Shen, no Washington connections, recruited directly from Caltech, brilliant cryptographer. Add her, Victoria agreed. Hid Sergeant Reynolds. His connection to Sahara gives him personal investment. Blackwood nodded, taking notes. Anyone else? Victoria considered. Lieutenant Kellerman. Blackwood looked surprised. The man who just humiliated you publicly. His arrogance makes him predictable, Victoria explained, and his ambition makes him unlikely to join a shadow organization requiring permanent anonymity. He wants recognition too desperately. Valid assessment. Blackwood conceded. I'll have them assembled within the hour. What else do you need? Victoria's hand moved to the chrome Magnum. Just what I already carry, General. A weapon and a purpose. Blackwood studied her old friend, noting new hardness in her eyes, additional scars that hadn't existed 3 years ago. The woman who left for Sahara was a soldier following orders. The one who returned was something else entirely. Moi become what circumstances demand, Victoria replied simply. And I've learned how the world truly operates. Later that evening, as Victoria and Blackwood walked through a quiet corridor, their footsteps echoing in the empty hallway, the day had been spent briefing the hastily assembled team, reviewing intelligence, and preparing for the operation beginning at dawn. 3 years in deep cover, Blackwood said, breaking comfortable silence. Was it worth it? Victoria considered carefully. We'll discover that soon. They're planning something beyond taking AD-US. The defense platform is just one component of a larger strategy. If we fail, Blackwood asked uncharacteristically vulnerable. We won't fail, Victoria replied simply. The team is solid. Corporal Chen has already identified 4 potential access points to AD-LAS that even I wasn't aware of. They reached the end of their walk at the facility's memorial hall, walls lined with bronze plaques bearing names of operatives lost in service. Most missions classified, most deaths officially denied. This hall was their only recognition. They paused before one particular section. Blackwood's finger traced a specific name, Major Victoria Sterling, Sahara Operation. Should we remove it? Blackwood asked. Victoria studied her own name among the fallen. Not yet. The woman I was did die out there. And who returned? Blackwood asked quietly. Victoria's hand moved to the chrome Magnum. Someone who finishes what she starts. The weapon seemed to glow in the memorial's subdued lighting, its surface reflecting the soft illumination, bathing the names of the fallen. For 3 years, it had remained hidden just as she had, waiting for the moment to emerge again. The after-action reports from Sahara, Blackwood said. They never made sense. How one operative eliminated 16 hostage takers and extracted 24 civilians. The reports were deliberately incomplete, Victoria said, because of what I discovered inside that facility. The hostage situation was manufactured, a test orchestrated by people within our government. They wanted to see if they could stage a crisis justifying certain security protocols. Blackwood stared. You mean they were willing to sacrifice those people for political purposes? Not willing. Victoria corrected. Eager. The hostages were selected because they had access to information that could have exposed early elements of Fractured Mirror. The terrorists were mercenaries hired to eliminate them while creating an international incident. And when you realized this, I changed mission parameters, Victoria said simply. Instead of quiet extraction of key personnel, I made it loud, saved everyone, made it impossible to cover up, created a story so compelling it became legend. Which is why they tried to eliminate you in Morocco. Exactly? Victoria confirmed. But their attempt gave me the perfect opportunity to disappear, become someone else, infiltrate their organization and learn their true plans. They continued in silence, each lost in thought. The bronze plaques gleamed like judgments, reminders of the cost of the shadow war they had fought so long. Does it bother you? Blackwood asked suddenly. That your greatest achievement is known only as rumor, a story told by those who weren't there. Victoria smiled faintly. Recognition was never the point, Sarah. The people who walked out of that facility alive, they know. Their families know. That's enough. When they reached the memorial's end, where a single empty plaque awaited the next name, Victoria paused. So many lost, so many sacrificed for causes they barely understood. She had come close to joining them permanently, had seen her name on that wall for 3 years. You said the woman you were died out there, Blackwood observed. What did you mean? Victoria considered her answer. Faith, she said finally. Faith in the system, in the chain of command, in the inherent rightness of our work. That died in Sahara. What returned is something clearer. I see the world as it is, not as I wish it to be, Victoria explained. I understand that power corrupts, that systems fail, that people betray, but I also understand that individual actions matter. That saving 24 lives was worth the cost. That stopping Obsidian Fracture is worth whatever comes next. Blackwood studied her friend's face, seeing new lines, hardened resolve, wounds both visible and hidden. And after? What comes after for Victoria Sterling? I don't know, she admitted. I've been someone else so long. I'm not sure Victoria Sterling exists beyond this mission. They walked to the elevator that would return them to the command center, where Corporal Chen, Sergeant Reynolds, and Lieutenant Kellerman awaited instructions. As the elevator ascended, Victoria checked her chrome Magnum one final time, a ritual that had become second nature. Its weight was familiar, comforting, a constant in a world of shadows and betrayal. Why keep such a distinctive weapon? Blackwood asked, watching her. Standard issue would draw less attention. Victoria holstered the pistol. The man who gave me this weapon told me something I never forgot. He said, carry this and you'll never forget who you really are, no matter what role you play. He was eliminated 2 weeks later. Victoria added matter-of-factly. Another early victim of Obsidian Fracture. The chrome Magnum became a reminder not just of who I am, but why I do this work. The elevator doors opened, revealing the command center's bustle. Corporal Chen spotted them immediately, her expression mixing nervousness and determination. Major, we've completed preliminary analysis of ATOS access protocols, she reported. There are indeed 4 separate authentication systems as you predicted. Excellent work, Victoria said. Then we're ready. Tomorrow morning, Dr. Rebecca Walsh arrives for her scheduled ATOS audit. By tomorrow night, we either expose Obsidian Fracture or they gain control of America's most powerful weapon system. For the first time since returning, Victoria laughed genuinely. Just another day at the office, General, she approached her team, leaving behind 3 years of shadows, focusing entirely on the mission ahead. Someone forged in betrayal and tempered by solitude. Someone who understood that true power lay not in weapons or authority, but in the willingness to stand against impossible odds. As her chrome Magnum caught the light, the team looked up with expressions mixing awe and determination. They had been chosen for this impossible task, to stand against a shadow organization with tendrils throughout government. Let's begin, Victoria said simply, and the final briefing for Operation Fractured Mirror commenced.